We are what we think about most. In life, we attribute a great deal of time into our thoughts, and as a result, we somewhat become our thoughts. Not to say that we are just what we think about, but we somewhat think that our thoughts define who we are as people. We get emotions from the processes of the mind, and in some way, we become these emotions. They show us how we are and how we feel, almost like a car has like warning lights. So, what are we really? I think it's safe to say that we're the reaction to our external circumstance and external interactions. Given that many of the things we do and how we feel is often in reaction to some other circumstance and the external, like one thing leading to another, and then eventually getting to your current moment. As kids, we use what we see as reference to formulate our identity. We see adults or other people interact, whether that be through the media, through TV, any way you can see people interact, and we kind of copy that so as to learn how people interact in the regular world. And that's why I think it's so important for like kids to be surrounded with, a certain environment that really boosts up who they are. Like I was talking about it in a podcast, how we don't bombard our kids with enough affirmation, so they grow up to be adults who don't need to get that sort of affirmation. And that's some of the main issues that people have. Like I'm seeing that in college a lot, even with myself. And I feel like as kids, you're at a good state where you can be filled up real easy, and that's gonna become your reality. But unfortunately, when we get into this point that we're at now, and we have a conscious mind developed, then our subconscious from when we were a kid is impacting our conscious mind and who we are, our body. And we have to take real conscious effort and be conscious of the conscious in order to kind of reverse some of those effects when we would have been able to get rid of them early on. There are things that we think of and analyze, but I don't think time is ever taken to acknowledge how thoughts themselves impact who we are and not the things causing them. What we allow to be the conscious in turn becomes the subconscious and then the self. Many of us are not held back by circumstance in the long term. It's the, re-traumatization or the reinstantiation of the issue over and over again in our mind through like overthought or processes where we, struggle for control or validation or affirmation or attention, anything in the situation that you might have needed. We kind of dwell on that because we're still not necessarily receiving it from whatever source we needed in order to heal from it at that moment. Hardships are real nonetheless, but the reaction to it only lasts, the reaction is the reaction. What happens afterwards is no longer that. Not to say that like thought after stuff happens isn't necessary, because it absolutely is. You have to readdress many of the issues that hold you back. But you know, if you keep telling yourself you're wounded, then that's pretty much the reality is it's gonna be. Not just like people. Some people are wounded, but to heal, you kind of have to re reinstitute a standard for yourself. Reinstitute a idea that grounds you in your own reality or your own, you know, image of yourself. Healing takes some time, of course, but part of the sickness is self inflicted. The moment we accept ourselves as sick, that's the moment we truly become. That's the moment that the reality of ourselves is there. Like The moment we choose to accept or are forced to accept that that's the way things are. In that case, we must be pretty intent in controlling, um, not controlling how we feel, but, you know, controlling how we're going to move forward is a better way of putting it. Because feelings are hard things to control, and no one's truly able to just drop everything and control how they feel about every situation. However, I feel like the reaction to the emotion is the important part. Because a lot of us spiral into actions that kind of compound upon the emotion. Like when we're sad, we listen to sad music and it makes us more sad. And I feel like some of us, with like mundane things only, want to be in that state. A lot of us view pain and hardship as just opportunity for character development. And in our minds, it's something that we somewhat like predispose ourselves to with um, illogical thought or self victimization. We put ourselves in situations that don't allow us to be the best version of ourselves because part of us wants to be a journey, be something that we're constantly working on. And I feel like the issue with constantly thinking you're working on yourself or constantly thinking you're some type of self improvement project is you tend to get in your mind and think that everything is an issue when in reality many things are not. I think that like through meditation or some type of forced thought, maybe it's possible to kind of alter your conscience, alter what you think about on a daily, alter your pattern of thought. And once you're able to alter the pattern, you're effectively changing how you view the world. Because if you're constantly worried about negative circumstances and looking at the negative aspects of life, then that's the only thing that you're going to be able to see. An unstressed eye sees an unstressed world. The more we stress and try to focus on the negative parts of life, the more we're missing of the positive, and the more we see of the negative. Now, negative things are partially good. I think it's the duality that creates any difference between positive and negative. Sometimes you need these hardships in order to emerge as a better person. Sometimes we are put in situations where we learn certain things in order to become better people. But that's not to say that we should dwell on these things. It's like I was talking about in self faith and self belief, but it's not like you should constantly be worried and constantly berating yourself about mundane issues that you're entrapped with. It should be more so you internalize it, you see what you can learn, and you move forward. Overthought, I don't think thought posits anything in reality other than actions that you take. And if you're able to control your thoughts to a small degree or control your reaction, better yet, then I feel like the process and journey is so much better. I feel like what we do in our action is kind of reaffirming our subconscious of what things are. If you're if you think you're wounded and you start limping, you're gonna start to think you're even more wounded. It's not like it's an involuntary action or something like that, but with things that plague the mind more so, we tend to act like they're very much there. We kind of identify with it, and that kind of makes us more predisposed to the impacts of it, whether or not they be there initially or not. The you know belief that it's there definitely does not assist the process at which you need to heal from it. I think that a lot of stuff should be focused on in more of a positive light. There's so much more to positivity than there is negativity in this life. And the more we focus on like positive circumstance and positive occurrence, the more apt we are to being able to benefit from the positive, to being able to see more opportunities. People tend to find what they're looking for. And I feel like a lot of us aren't oriented to look for positive things or look for things to be grateful for, or look for opportunities for themselves to be better. We tend to look at negative stuff or try to look for negative stuff so as to avoid it, but in reality, that's just causing us to move toward it. And overall, be a better individual through these things. life unstressed is a gift to the person who doesn't stress himself.